The 90s had a way of getting inside your head without shouting for attention. These were thrillers that moved quietly, but once they got to you, they stayed there. Not the obvious classics everyone talks about. These are the ones that slipped past the spotlight, even though they had everything needed to become unforgettable. Let's start with Malice, a film that pretends to be one kind of story and then slowly reveals it is something else entirely. At first, it feels like a straightforward crime thriller set in a peaceful college town. A series of attacks has people on edge, and a married couple is trying to hold their life together while dealing with personal struggles. Bill Pullman plays the husband, a calm and slightly reserved man, while Nicole Kidman brings a quiet intensity to the role of his wife. Things begin to shift when a confident surgeon, played by Alec Baldwin, enters the picture. He carries himself with a level of arrogance that feels almost unreal, yet strangely believable. What makes this film stand out is how it keeps changing direction. Just when you think you understand what is happening, another layer is revealed. Motives shift, truths unravel, and the characters become harder to trust. The writing went through multiple rewrites, which actually worked in its favor because the final story feels unpredictable. It is messy in places, but that chaos becomes part of the experience. By the end, you are left questioning everything you thought you understood at the beginning. And maybe that's the point. It's not trying to give you clean answers. Instead, it leans into discomfort, forcing you to sit with uncertainty as every character reveals just how far they're willing to go when pushed. There's also something fascinating about how the film plays with tone. One moment, it feels like a domestic drama about a strained marriage, and the next, it slips into something darker, almost sinister. The dialogue, especially in key moments, carries a sharp edge that lingers long after it's spoken. Characters don't just reveal information, they expose pieces of themselves, often in ways that feel unsettling. Even the quiet scenes are loaded with tension, making you constantly anticipate the next shift. It's that uneasy balance between control and chaos that keeps you hooked, never quite letting you settle into a single version of the story. Then there is Arlington Road, a film that feels almost too real for comfort. Jeff Bridges plays a college professor who teaches about domestic terrorism. His life already carries a sense of unease because his wife, who worked as an FBI agent, died during a failed operation. That loss leaves him constantly on edge, always expecting something to go wrong. When new neighbors move in, played by Tim Robbins and Joan Cusack, everything seems normal at first. They are friendly, polite, and perfectly suburban. But small details begin to feel off. Little inconsistencies in their stories start to pile up. The more Bridges investigates, the more convinced he becomes that something is not right. The problem is that no one else sees what he sees. That isolation makes the story even more intense. The film was shot in real suburban neighborhoods, which adds to the realism. It does not rely on flashy moments. Instead, it builds tension through suspicion and doubt. By the time it reaches its ending, it delivers one of the boldest conclusions of any thriller from that decade. It is the kind of film that leaves you sitting quietly after it ends, trying to process what just happened. Moving in a completely different direction, The Crush takes a simple idea and pushes it into uncomfortable territory. Alicia Silverstone plays a teenager who develops an intense fixation on an older man, portrayed by Cary Elwes. At first, her behavior seems like a harmless crush, something that could easily be brushed off. But the film quickly shows that it is far more serious than that. Her character does not fully understand the consequences of her actions, which makes her even more dangerous. She manipulates situations, spreads lies, and creates problems that spiral out of control. What makes the performance so effective is how calm she remains while everything is falling apart. The story was inspired by real experiences from the director, which adds a layer of authenticity. It is uncomfortable, unpredictable, and far darker than it appears at first glance. Now consider Shattered, a film that builds its tension around identity and memory. Tom Berenger plays a man who survives a serious car accident but wakes up with no memory of who he is. His face has been reconstructed, and his entire past feels like a blank space. His wife, played by Greta Scacchi, helps him rebuild his life, or at least that is what it seems. As fragments of memory begin to return, things start to feel wrong. Details do not match, events do not line up. The man begins to question whether he is really the person everyone says he is. A private investigator, played by Bob Hoskins, digs deeper and uncovers disturbing truths. The film uses subtle visual techniques to create discomfort, making everything feel slightly off even when nothing obvious is happening. It is a slow burn, but the payoff is worth it. Another film that plays with obsession in a terrifying way is Single White Female. Bridget Fonda plays a woman who decides to get a roommate after a breakup. That roommate, portrayed by Jennifer Jason Leigh, initially seems quiet and harmless. She is helpful, polite, and eager to fit in. But slowly, her behavior changes. She begins copying Fonda's style, her habits, even her personal choices. At first it feels like admiration, but it soon becomes something far more disturbing. The imitation turns into obsession, and the obsession turns into danger. The film captures the fear of losing control over your own life and identity. It is not loud or explosive. It is quiet, creeping, and deeply unsettling. Then there is Fear, a film that explores how quickly love can turn into something destructive. Mark Wahlberg plays a charming young man who seems perfect at first. He is confident, protective, and deeply devoted. Reese Witherspoon plays the teenage girl who falls for him, believing she has found someone special. But the charm does not last. His behavior becomes controlling, then aggressive, and eventually dangerous. The transformation feels real because it happens gradually. Each step seems small until it is too late to turn back. The film does not hold back in showing how toxic relationships can develop. It is intense, uncomfortable, and surprisingly honest for its time. A much darker and more psychological experience comes from Jacob's Ladder. Tim Robbins plays a man struggling with disturbing visions after returning from war. His reality begins to fall apart as he experiences strange and terrifying hallucinations. Figures appear where they should not be. Faces change in unnatural ways. The line between what is real and what is imagined becomes impossible to define. The film does not offer easy answers. Instead, it pulls the viewer deeper into confusion and fear. The imagery is unsettling, and the emotional weight is heavy. It is not just a thriller. It is an experience that challenges how you understand reality itself. Then comes The Good Son, a film that shocked audiences by presenting something truly disturbing. Macaulay Culkin, known for his cheerful roles, plays a child who hides a much darker nature. Elijah Wood plays his cousin, who slowly realizes that something is very wrong. What makes this film so effective is the contrast. A child is expected to be innocent, but here that expectation is completely broken. The character is manipulative, calculating, and capable of serious harm. Adults in the story fail to see the truth, leaving the young protagonist trapped in a dangerous situation. It creates a sense of helplessness that makes the tension even stronger. Finally, the hand that rocks the cradle takes a familiar setting and turns it into something frightening. A woman, played by Rebecca De Mornay, enters a family's home as a nanny. She appears perfect, caring, and reliable. But beneath that calm surface is a plan driven by revenge. She slowly works her way into the family, gaining trust while secretly manipulating everything around her. The home, which should feel safe, becomes a place of tension and fear. Annabella Sciorra plays the mother who begins to sense that something is wrong, but struggles to prove it. The film builds its suspense through small moments that grow into something much larger. These films may not have dominated the headlines, but they represent a time when thrillers were willing to take risks. They focused on atmosphere, character, and psychological tension instead of relying on easy tricks. Each one offers something unique, whether it is a twist on identity, obsession, or fear itself. Looking back, it becomes clear that these overlooked thrillers were not forgotten because they were weak. In many cases, they were simply ahead of their time or too unsettling for mainstream audiences. Today, they stand as reminders of how powerful the genre can be when it chooses to go deeper instead of louder. Which of these thrillers did you actually forget about? Drop your answers in the comment section. Also, like this video, and if you want more, subscribe to the channel for more videos like this.